Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something truly colossal, something that shapes our world but often stays just out of sight. We're talking about cargo ships, these absolute giants, right? They're constantly moving the stuff that fills our homes, our stores.
Everything, really.
Exactly. But they rarely get the spotlight. We've gathered quite a bit of info for you today, drawing from sources that cover everything from like the basic definitions all the way to some surprising environmental stuff. Our goal here is pretty straightforward, to get you quickly up to speed on these unsung heroes of global trade. We want to share some surprising facts, connect the dots, basically, so you'll never look at that Amazon package quite the same way again.
And it really does go deep. The sheer scale, I mean, the complexity of this maritime world, it's quite staggering. It underpins so much of what we just take for granted. Think about the logistics, the ship designs. There's a huge story there. By the end of this, you'll really appreciate these feats of engineering and, well, global organization.
Absolutely. So let's start right at the beginning. What is a cargo ship, exactly, and why should we care? Well, at its heart, it's a merchant vessel, sometimes called a freighter. Pretty simple, right? Designed to carry goods, materials from port to port.
That's the core function.
Right. And think about this. Thousands, literally thousands of these ships are crisscrossing the oceans every year. They handle the vast, vast majority, the bulk of all international trade. So, when you buy something made halfway across the world, chances are extremely high it spent a good chunk of time on one of these vessels.
Definitely.
And they're not just like floating boxes. These are specialized machines, often got their own cranes, for loading, unloading efficiently. Construction-wise, they're almost always welded steel. Yeah. Built tough. They're expected to last, about 25 to 30 years?
Yeah, that's the typical lifespan.
Yeah.
25, 30 years is standard. And, it's a small thing, but interesting, the difference between cargo and freight. Technically.
Oh, yeah. Go on.
Well, cargo is the stuff being carried, the goods. Freight is more the act of carrying it, the service.
Ah, okay. So the ship carries cargo as freight.
Precisely. But honestly, in everyday talk, people use them interchangeably. Everyone gets it. The key isn't the word, it's the sheer volume we're talking about.
Right, the volume. Okay, so how does this massive industry actually work? Seems like there are different ways ships operate.
Yeah, fundamentally, the modern shipping business breaks down into two main classes, two distinct ways of doing things.
Very different approaches.
First up, you've got the liner business. This is probably what most people picture. Those huge container ships stacked high with the standard 20-foot or 40-foot boxes.
The really visible ones.
Exactly. And they operate like clockwork, or, well, like a bus schedule almost. Regularly published timetables, fixed ports of call, predictable. They're called common carriers, which basically means any member of the public can book space for their cargo on these routes.
Right, it's a public service in a way, regulated. Yeah, governed by international rules. And these routes, they're run by shipping lines, big companies specializing in this general cargo. Each trip is just called a voyage. Oh, and here's a little interesting bit. Some of these liners can actually carry passengers too, like a dozen or so. A sort of combined cargo passenger trip.
A different way to see the world, I suppose.
Definitely slower. Okay, so that's the liner business. Then the complete opposite, really, is the tramp tanker business.
Tramp, yeah. Sounds less scheduled already.
It is. This is much more flexible. Often private deals between the shipper and the receiver. Vessel owners basically rent out their ships for specific jobs, these tramp ships. No fixed schedules, no set routes. They go wherever the cargo needs to go.
On demand.
Exactly. They carry bulk cargo, could be dry stuff like grain, coal, or liquids like oil, or something called break bulk. Break bulk is basically items that don't fit neatly into containers. Think like big machinery, maybe logs, that kind of thing, individual pieces.
Gotcha, so less standardized loads.
Right, and these tramp operations, they're governed by a specific contract, a charter party it's called. You often find smaller companies, even individuals, running these ships. Much more agile.
And that distinction is so important, isn't it? Because they serve totally different needs in the supply chain.
How so?
Well, the liner business provides that predictable, steady flow, perfect for consumer goods, manufacturing components, things where companies need reliable schedules for planning. It's the backbone.
Okay, makes sense.
But the tramp tanker side, that's your flexible response team. Need to move a massive amount of iron ore from Brazil to China, or crude oil from the Middle East. That's likely a tramp charter. It handles those huge, often single commodity shipments, adapting to specific, sometimes urgent industry demands, moving raw materials.
So one's the scheduled train, the other's the chartered bus, maybe?
Sort of, yeah. That flexibility is crucial for raw materials that fuel everything else.
It really paints a picture of a, well, very sophisticated system. And speaking of sophisticated, let's talk about the ships themselves, because there isn't just one type of cargo ship, is there?
Oh, not at all. The specialization is incredible. They're basically categorized by what they're built to carry. There are about 8 main groups.
8. Okay, let's run through them. First, you've got your general cargo vessels, kind of the all-rounders, right, for packaged stuff, chemicals, food, furniture, machines.
The versatile ones, yeah.
Then the ones we see everywhere. Container ships, kings of containerization. All their load is in those standard truck-size boxes. They move most of the world's non-bulk cargo.
And their size is measured in TEUs.
Exactly, TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units. Basically, how many standard 20-foot containers they can carry. Some carry thousands. Next, tankers. Pretty obvious for petroleum, other liquids.
Crude oil, gasoline, chemicals.
Then dry bulk carriers. Think loose stuff, coal, grain, ore, that kind of thing, poured right into the holds.
Huge quantities.
For real versatility, there are multi-purpose vessels. They can actually carry different classes of cargo at the same time, maybe some liquid tanks and space for general cargo.
Binding rolls.
Yeah. Then, for anything that needs to stay cold.
Ah, reefer ships. Refrigerated.
Exactly. Reefers, specially designed for perishables, fruit, meat, fish, dairy, temperature controlled, vital for the global food trade.
Keeps your bananas fresh.
Pretty much. Then, one with a fun name, roll-on roll-off ships. RRO, they call them.
RRO, what do they do?
They're like floating parking garages, designed for anything with wheels, cars, trucks, trailers, even train cars. They literally drive them on and drive them off ramps.
Efficient for vehicles, then.
Super efficient. And finally, timber carriers, or lumber carriers, as the name suggests, built specifically for logs, lumber, wood products.
Wow, okay. That's quite a range. And what's fascinating, really, is how this specialization mirrors the complexity of global trade. Each ship type isn't just a box. It's optimized, engineered for its specific cargo.
Right, like the reefer ship example.
Exactly. It's not just cold. It's a precisely controlled environment. A container ship needs immense structural strength to stack thousands of tons safely in rough seas. A tanker has complex systems for safely handling flammable liquids.
Safety and efficiency.
It's all about moving this incredible variety of goods across oceans as effectively and safely as possible. It really shows the ingenuity behind it all.
Okay, so we've got types down. Now let's talk size. Because these things can be unbelievably huge.
Oh, absolutely massive.
How do we even categorize that? It's not just about how much they carry, right?
Right.
They're categorized by capacity tonnage or deadweight tonnage, DWT, which is the total weight of everything they can carry, including cargo, fuel, crew, supplies.
So their total carrying potential.
Exactly, but also by their physical dimensions, length, width, which they call the beam.
The widest point.
Yeah, and how deep they sit in the water, the draft, and even their height. And these physical limits are critical.
Because they determine where the ship can actually go.
Precisely. Can it fit through a canal lock, under a bridge, through a shallow strait, or into a particular harbor? The dimensions are everything.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Because geography literally starts dictating ship design and trade routes. These limitations define whole categories of ships.
Like the famous canals.
Exactly. Take the Panama Canal. The original locks had very specific size limits. So for decades, the maximum size ship that could fit through was called Panamax. That was a global standard.
Okay.
But then they built the new, bigger locks. So now we have Neo-Panamax ships much larger, carrying way more cargo. It fundamentally changed shipping economics and routes for certain trades.
Wow. So the canal expansion created a whole new ship class.
Pretty much. Same idea with the Suez Canal ships built to the maximum size for that are Suezmax, or the Strait of Malacca Max. Even the St. Lawrence Seaway has Seaway Max. Each waterway imposes its own limits.
It's like engineering ships to fit specific keyholes around the world.
That's a great way to put it. And imagine the planning, building a ship that might only have a few feet of clearance.
Stressful. What about ships that are too big for these?
Yes. Then you get into categories like Capesize. These are generally too big for Suez or the new Panama locks. They have to go the long way around the Capes, Cape Agulhas in South Africa or Cape Horn in South America.
Longer routes, higher costs, presumably.
Right. And then there are the real behemoths, VLCCs, very large crude carriers, and even bigger, ULCCs, ultra-large crude carriers.
Ultra large. How big are we talking?
Enormous. Supertankers carrying hundreds of thousands of tons of oil. Some are so huge, their draft, how deep they sit, is too much. Even for Malacca, or the expanded Panama Canal, they had to take those long ocean routes. Geography dictates the journey.
That's incredible. The land shapes the ships, and there are even ships stuck in lakes.
Sort of. There are lake freighters specifically designed for North America's Great Lakes. Different wave patterns there, different needs. Some are actually larger than Seaway Max, so they can't get out into the ocean. They're locked inland.
Wow. Okay, so size matters, and geography shapes everything. But this isn't new, right? Shipping goods goes way back.
Oh, way, way back. The earliest records we have of people using boats, they pretty much always mention trade, carrying stuff. By the first millennium BC, it was common.
People have always needed to move things.
Absolutely. And get this, there was this ship found, the Uluburun shipwreck, from maybe the 14th century BC, tiny by today's standards, maybe 15 meters long.
Okay.
It was carrying 20 tons of cargo, including like 11 tons of raw copper ingots, jars, glass, ivory, gold, spices, treasures from all over the ancient world: Canaan, Greece, Egypt, Africa.
20 tons on a 15-meter boat. That's impressive for the time.
Right. And that desire to trade further, operate year-round, that's what drove ship design improvements through the Middle Ages. But it wasn't always safe passage.
Pirates.
Big time. Before the mid-1800s or so, piracy was a huge problem. Most valuable cargo ships, like those famous Spanish Manila galleons or the British East Indiamen, they had to be armed, sometimes heavily armed, or they traveled in convoys with warships for protection. Makes sense. High stakes. And it's really striking, isn't it, how that threat, piracy, it hasn't entirely gone away.
Still an issue today.
Absolutely. It's still a serious concern in certain hotspots. The Malacca Straits you mentioned, still relevant. Waters off Somalia, Nigeria, parts of South America, Southeast Asia, even near the Caribbean. It's a modern problem.
Wow. So governments are still actively working on protecting ships.
Yeah, like that 2004 agreement between Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, specifically for the Malacca Straits. It shows it's an ongoing challenge.
Okay, so security is one challenge. What about the environment? These huge ships must have an impact.
They definitely do. A major one is pollution, particularly from fuel. Most big cargo ships run on something called bunker fuel. Basically, it's heavy fuel oil. It's cheap, but it's, well, pretty dirty compared to regular diesel. Much higher sulfur content, for instance.
And given the number of ships, exactly. The scale is enormous. Back in 2001, global consumption was around 278 million tons a year, projected to hit 500 million tons by 2020, though regulations are changing that picture now.
So what's being done?
Well, there's a big push internationally. New standards are mandating sharp cuts in sulfur emissions and nitrogen oxides, too.
Yeah.
Things like forcing ships to switch to cleaner fuels like marine gas oil, which is closer to diesel when they're in restricted waters, near coasts, or in ports.
Okay.
And also this thing called cold ironing. That's when ships in port plug into the shoreside electrical grid and shut down their own engines, reduces noise and emissions right there in the harbor.
Makes sense. Are there technical hurdles?
Yeah, cleaning up the fuel isn't simple. Taking sulfur out of marine gas oil can affect its properties, like how well it lubricates engine parts. So engineers need workarounds, like sometimes cooling the fuel, believe it or not, to protect the engines. But the regulations are having an impact. The big goal from the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, is like a 90% cut in sulfur oxide emissions. And the EU is pushing for even tighter controls.
That's significant progress. But beyond emissions, are there other, maybe less obvious environmental impacts?
That's a really important question. And yes, there's emerging research.
Yeah, I saw something about whale sharks.
Exactly. Smithsonian Magazine reported on this back in 2022. Scientists noticed a really mysterious, sharp decline in whale shark populations, the biggest fish in the sea, remember, over the last 75 years or so.
And the culprit might be?
The research points strongly towards cargo ships and other large vessels. Collisions, basically. A huge study, over 75 researchers involved, highlighted this danger across their key habitats. Ecuador, Mexico, the Philippines, Oman, all over.
Wow, just running into them.
It seems so. It's a really sobering, heartbreaking reminder that the sheer presence of these massive ships has ripple effects we're only beginning to understand, impacting even these incredible creatures. A really tough side effect of global trade. Okay, Let's shift gears slightly for the final part. Let's talk about some specific ships that have become famous, or maybe
It's
infamous.
that made history, yeah.
During World War II, the Allies faced a massive challenge, getting supplies across oceans patrolled by German U-boats. Their answer? The Liberty ships.
Workhorses.
Totally. They built 2,710 of them, partly based on a British design, but mass-produced in the U.S. like never before. Sections were prefabricated all over the country, then assembled at shipyards at incredible speed.
How fast?
Average assembly time was about 6 weeks, but the record, just over 4 days from keel laying to launch for one ship.
4 days. That's unbelievable.
It meant they could replace ships faster than the U-boats could sink them, absolutely crucial to the war effort. They were followed by the faster Victory ships, and other allies had similar programs. Canada had Park and Fort ships, the UK had Empire ships.
A huge industrial effort. What happened to them after the war?
Many were sold off to private companies, becoming the backbone of the post-war merchant fleets. Real heroes, those ships. Okay, jumping to modern times. Any recent examples that stick out?
Well, you can't not mention the Ever Given, can you?
Oh, yeah. The Suez Canal incident, March 2021, got itself wedged sideways.
And brought global trade to a screeching halt for almost a week. Everyone suddenly realized how vital that narrow waterway is and how vulnerable supply chains can be.
Definitely made headlines worldwide. And then much more tragically just this year, 2024.
The MV Dolly in Baltimore.
Yeah. Colliding with the Francis Scott Key Bridge caused that catastrophic collapse and heartbreakingly led to at least 6 deaths.
A terrible reminder of the immense forces involved and the potential for disaster when things go wrong.
Absolutely. These events really underscore the power, the scale, and the critical, sometimes precarious nature of these vessels in our world. So, wrapping this all up, what's the takeaway? We've gone from defining what a cargo ship is to the sheer variety of types, their immense sizes dictated by geography, their ancient history, the modern challenges like piracy and pollution.
And those unexpected impacts, like on whale sharks.
Right, all the way to these iconic ships that make news for heroic or tragic reasons. It's clear these aren't just boats. They're the literal arteries of our global economy. They affect everything, your coffee, your phone, your car.
Absolutely. They're often out of sight, yeah, but they represent these incredibly complex systems, feats of engineering, logistics, global cooperation, or competition. They're the hidden infrastructures supporting so much of modern life. So next time you see a product from overseas, maybe just take a second to think about the incredible journey it likely took on one of these giants.
Yeah. And that leaves us with something to ponder, a final thought for you, our listener. What other huge unseen systems are humming away beneath the surface of our daily lives, shaping our world in ways we barely notice, ways that might be just as profound and surprising? Okay, let's unpack this. Tonight we're setting our sights on, well, arguably the most famous constellation in the night sky. Orion, the mighty hunter. You know, the one, that unmistakable shape, instantly familiar to anyone who's ever looked up at a clear winter night. Our mission for this deep dive is to go far beyond just its iconic look. We've really dug into the sources, pulling out surprising facts and fascinating insights. We want to explore Orion not just as, a collection of stars, but as a real cultural touchstone, a scientific marvel, and even a timeless guide across millennia.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating here is how Orion really transcends just basic astronomy. It's almost like a cultural artifact, woven into human history and understanding across so many different civilizations.
That's a great point.
It isn't just stars, it's like a living story, kind of evolving with every generation that looks up at it.
Exactly, and that sets the stage perfectly. So we're going to zoom in on its physical characteristics, its brightest stars, some real stunners there, and the incredible deep sky objects hidden within its borders. Then we'll take a journey through its rich tapestry of global myths and legends, seeing how different cultures saw meaning in the same pattern, and maybe even take a peek into its distant cosmic future.
Sounds good.
So get ready to see Orion in a whole new light, way beyond just those 3 stars in a belt. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Where does this celestial hunter actually hang out in our night sky? For such a big figure, how does its position, define its interactions with its neighbors, and what does that mean for us trying to see it?
Right. Well, Orion is definitely not small. It's got some pretty famous neighbors bordering it. Taurus to the northwest, Eridanus to the southwest, Lepus down south, Monoceros to the east, and Gemini up to the northeast.
Wow, crowded neighborhood.
It is. And it covers a pretty hefty 594 square degrees. It actually ranks at 26th out of the 88 constellations. So its sheer size means it takes up a significant chunk of the celestial sphere.
And its visibility is pretty much global, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm always amazed how its appearance changes depending on the season and where you are on Earth.
Absolutely. For you, our listeners, maybe in the northern hemisphere, Orion's a classic winter sight, best seen from January to April.
Right.
But if you're down in the southern hemisphere, that's your summer sky constellation. What's kind of cool is how it appears directly overhead in the tropics, places like, say, Kenya or Indonesia around midnight in December, or in the evening sky come February.
I read something fascinating that even in Antarctica, during their constant winter twilight, the brightest stars of Orion can actually be seen just skimming the horizon for a few hours.
That's right.
It really puts its global reach into perspective.
It does. And this visibility wasn't just for, casual stargazing. Imagine being an ancient mariner or maybe a traveler crossing land. How invaluable would this celestial roadmap have been?
Oh, right.
Beyond just being a pretty pattern, Orion has basically served as a kind of cosmic GPS for thousands of years.
It's amazing. So it's not just a standalone thing. It also acts as a pointer, a celestial signpost for other cool stuff up there.
Exactly. Orion's belt, those 3 stars, is a fantastic starting point. If you draw a line kind of southeastward from the belt, boom, you hit Sirius, the brightest star in the entire night sky.
Can't miss it.
Nope. Go northwest from the belt, and you'll find Aldebaran in Taurus, the 2 shoulder stars of Orion. They point roughly eastward to Procyon.
Okay.
And if you draw a line starting from Rigel up through Betelgeuse, it points you right towards Castor and Pollux in Gemini. Plus, Rigel itself is a key star in that big winter circle asterism, and Sirius and Procyon, which you find using Orion, they make up the winter triangle. It's incredibly interconnected.
It really is a sky map built right in. Okay, but let's dig deeper into the anatomy of this giant. Orion's famous for that distinctive hourglass shape, right? Formed by its 7 brightest stars. You've got that sort of rectangular outline made by Rigel, Betelgeuse, Bellatrix, and Saiph. And smack dab in the center, of course, the super famous 3 stars of Orion's belt, Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka.
The iconic trio.
Yeah. And then above that, Mysa marks Orion's head, and you can sort of picture a club extending north from Betelgeuse, maybe a shield off to the west of Bellatrix.
It's a very visually striking pattern, which is definitely why it's so recognizable.
Yeah.
And what's really special about many of those stars, particularly the ones in the belt and the sword area hanging below it, is that they are these incredibly luminous, hot blue supergiants.
Right.
They actually form what astronomers call the Orion OB1 Association.
Yeah.
It's basically a family of very young, massive stars that were all born together relatively recently and are still kind of gravitationally hanging out together.
Wow, a stellar family. Now, let's zoom in on some of these individual giants, because they have some truly mind-blowing stories. Take Betelgeuse, for example, Alpha Uranus. Tell us about this absolute powerhouse.
Okay, Betelgeuse. It sits on Orion's right shoulder, visually speaking. It's a massive M-type red supergiant. Now, that means it's actually cooler than our sun, temperature-wise, but astronomically larger and incredibly luminous. It's nearing the end of its life.
The big red one.
That's the one. It's usually the second brightest star in Orion, but here's the thing. It's famously variable. Its brightness fluctuates. Remember back in 2019?
Yeah, the great dimming.
Exactly. It went from being about the 10th brightest star in the whole night sky down to like the 23rd. Caused quite a stir.
For sure.
And crucially, it's expected to explode in a supernova sometime within the next, say, 100,000 years, which is, cosmically soon.
Yeah.
When it does blow, it'll be visible from Earth, possibly even outshining the moon for a while, and maybe even visible during the daytime. It's about 548 light years away, give or take.
That's just incredible to imagine. A daytime star. What about its counterpart, the bright one at the foot, Rigel?
Yes, Rigel, Beta Orionis, marking the hunter's left foot. This one's a B-type blue supergiant, so incredibly hot, massive, and burning through its fuel much, much faster and brighter than our sun. It's actually the 7th brightest star in the entire night sky.
What?
Like Betelgeuse, Rigel is also nearing its own supergiant stage. It could eventually collapse into a supernova too, or maybe end up as a white dwarf. It's quite a bit further away than Betelgeuse, though, around 863 light-years.
So we've got these two colossal stars, one red, one blue, anchoring the main shape. But what about the other corners of that rectangle?
Right. Well, moving up to the left shoulder, we find Bellatrix, Gamma Orionis. It's sometimes called the Amazon star. It's another B-type blue giant, though not quite as massive as Rigel. And interestingly, at about 245 light-years, it's the closest major star in Orion to us.
Closer than the others. Okay. And then, of course, the belt. Everyone knows the belt. What makes those three stars so special beyond just lining up so perfectly?
Yeah, they're not just pretty alignment. The three stars of Orion's belt are individually fascinating. Mintaka, that's the westernmost one, is actually a multiple star system. Yeah, and the main components form an eclipsing binary. That means, from our viewpoint, one star periodically passes in front of the other, causing the total brightness we see to dip slightly. It's like a little celestial dance, about 1,200 light-years away.
Cool.
Then there's Alnilam, the middle one, and the brightest of the three belt stars. It's another B-type blue supergent.
Yeah.
And get this. Despite being nearly twice as far away as the other two belt stars, around 1,344 light-years, its sheer intrinsic luminosity makes it appear almost as bright.
Incredible power.
It really is. It's also shedding mass very rapidly, blowing off strong stellar winds. And finally, Alnitak, the easternmost star, is a triple star system. Its main star, the primary, is the brightest Class O star known in the night sky.
Class O.
Yeah, Class O stars are the absolute hottest, most luminous, and shortest-lived stars out there. Real cosmic monsters. Alnitak is roughly 1,260 light-years away.
Wow. So, okay, we've got these incredible, powerful stars making up the main shape and the belt. But Orion holds even more cosmic treasures, right? Like hanging from the belt, where you'd imagine a sword might be. Yeah. There's something special there, isn't there? Not just another star.
Absolutely. That fuzzy patch hanging below the belt. What might look like a single faint star in the middle of Orion's sword to the naked eye is actually the magnificent Orion Nebula, M42.
The Orion Nebula.
Yep. This truly spectacular object is actually visible without binoculars or a telescope if you're away from city lights. You can tell it's not quite a star. It looks kind of fuzzy.
Right.
But if you do look at it through binoculars or a small telescope,
wow,
it just opens up. You see these breathtaking clouds of nascent stars, baby stars being born, luminous gas and dust. It's a stellar nursery in full swing.
A star factory.
Exactly. And right in its heart is the trapezium cluster. This is a tight group of very young, hot, newborn stars. Some are even brown dwarfs, you know, those failed stars that aren't quite massive enough to start nuclear fusion like a proper star, but they're still hot. These stars in the trapezium are incredibly young, maybe only a few 100,000 years old. And they're heating the surrounding gas to extreme temperatures, like 60,000 Kelvin. All this is happening about 1,500 light years away from us.
It's like looking back into a cosmic cradle. Just amazing. And the Orion Nebula isn't the only deep sky wonder hiding in there, is it?
Oh, not at all. There's M78, which is another bright nebula nearby that sometimes through a telescope people might mistake for a faint comet if they don't know what they're looking for. And then there's the really iconic Horsehead Nebula, IC434. You've probably seen pictures, that dark cloud of dust shaped like a horse's head, silhouetted against a brighter nebula behind it. Truly a cosmic masterpiece.
Absolutely stunning photo subject.
It is. And it's important to remember that all of these nebulae, the Orion Nebula, M78, the Horsehead, they're all part of a much larger structure called the Orion Molecular Cloud Complex. Think of it as this colossal stellar maternity ward made of dense gas and dust stretching hundreds of light years across. It's genuinely one of the most intense regions of ongoing star formation that we can actually observe in our corner of the Milky Way galaxy.
Wow. And, oh, we shouldn't forget the annual celestial fireworks, the Orionid meteor shower.
Good point. Yeah, the Orionids, they peak around October 20th each year. And those shooting stars you see, they're actually tiny bits of debris left behind by Halley's Comet.
No way. Linked to Halley's Comet.
Directly linked.
Yeah.
As Earth passes through the comet's debris trail, those particles burn up in our atmosphere. It's like Orion is putting on a little light show for us, courtesy of a famous comet.
A cosmic confetti cannon, that's brilliant. So Orion isn't just this static beacon, it's also a source of actual celestial fireworks.
Yeah.
Okay, but now that we've really got a handle on the scientific marvels, the sheer physical grandeur of this constellation, let's shift gears completely. For thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years, people looked up at these exact same stars and saw wildly different things. Different stories, different meanings, but all equally profound, right? It really speaks to the power of human imagination.
It truly does. And we probably have to start with the most famous one, the Greco-Roman myth, right?
And the hunter herself.
The hunter himself. Orion was seen as this gigantic, supernaturally strong hunter, often said to be the son of Poseidon, the sea god. One of the most well-known stories involves Gaia, the earth goddess. She got angry when Orion boasted he could kill every animal on Earth.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, not a good boast. So she sent a giant scorpion to deal with him. And that, according to the myth, is why the constellations of Scorpius and Orion are never in the sky at the same time. When one rises, the other sets. A clever way to explain their celestial opposition.
A cosmic grudge match.
Pretty much. But then there's another figure, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, who supposedly revived Orion with medicine, which explains why Orion is placed in the sky, sort of between the scorpion and the healer. Orion even pops up in epic poems like Homer's Odyssey and Virgil's Aeneid. He was a big deal.
Definitely a fixture, but what's so striking is how that same pattern of stars sparked completely different narratives elsewhere. What about the ancient Near East? What did people see there?
Right, moving east. In the ancient Near East, their views were often tied more to things like agriculture, guidance, maybe divinity. Babylonian star catalogs, for instance, called Orion Emuel Sippa ZIA 18A.
Okay, what's that mean?
It translates to something like the heavenly shepherd or true shepherd of Anu, Anu being a chief god. So it reflects maybe their reliance on guidance, like a shepherd guides a flock, and tied it to messenger gods.
Interesting.
Ancient Egyptians, with their focus on the afterlife, saw the stars of Orion as the god Sa, who was often syncretized, sort of merged with Osiris, the god of the underworld. They believed dead pharaohs transformed into Sa in the afterlife, traveling across the sky. So Orion was a celestial destination.
Wow, a pathway to the afterlife.
Yeah, and even the Bible mentions Orion 3 times, calling it Kisil. Some scholars link this name to a word meaning hope, perhaps relating it to the hope for winter rains that would come when Orion was prominent in the sky. So practical connections too.
Fascinating how those core societal values, agriculture, afterlife seasons, shaped their view of the same stars. How did things look further east, across Asia?
Well, in China, Orion was one of the 28 lunar mansions called Shen. That character literally means 3, clearly referring to the belt stars. And there's an ancient Chinese pictograph, maybe over 3,000 years old, that actually shows those 3 belt stars sitting right on top of a man's head. So that recognition is incredibly old.
3 millennia.
Yeah. In India, the Rig Veda, one of the oldest sacred texts, calls Orion Mariga, which means the deer, and Nataraja, the image of Shiva as the cosmic dancer, representing the universe's rhythm and cycles, is often interpreted as being depicted in the form of Orion.
The cosmic dancer, wow.
Even down in the Pacific, for the Maori people of New Zealand, the star Rigel, which they call Puanga, its rising signals the start of the Maori New Year, so a direct link to their calendar and celebrations.
It's just incredible how these patterns resonate everywhere, often tied to something really practical or deeply spiritual. What about in Europe, maybe away from those big Greek and Roman myths? Did they have local stories?
Oh, definitely. In old Hungarian tradition, for example, Orion wasn't just a hunter, but also sometimes the archer or even the reaper, Gazaz, sometimes identified with Nimrod from the Bible, considered the greatest hunter. And the belt was called the judge's stick.
The judge's stick. Interesting.
Yeah, suggests authority, maybe measure. In Scandinavia, folklore saw Orion's belt, not as a belt, but as Frigg's distaff, or Freya's distaff, a tool used for spinning thread, associating it with powerful goddesses linked to fate and domestic arts.
Ah, connecting it to goddesses.
And the Finns had names too. The belt and the sword below it were called Vainamoinen's scythe and Kaleva's sword, linking them to mythical heroes and tools from their national epic, the Kalevala.
So it becomes part of their own cultural epics. And across the Atlantic and the Americas, the stories must have been just as diverse, probably deeply connected to the local environment, right?
Absolutely. The Seri people, indigenous to northwestern Mexico, they call the 3 belt stars Hapsh, which means hunter. But the individual stars represent specific animals they hunted. A mule deer, a pronghorn, and a bighorn sheep. And the middle star, Anilam, is said to have been shot by the hunter. It's not just a story, it's like a celestial reflection of their hunting life.
Wow, mapping their prey onto the stars.
Exactly. And the Lakota people, Native Americans of the Great Plains, have this incredible imagery. For them, the belt, Kabnakanku, forms the spine of a great bison. The larger rectangle of Orion forms its ribs. The nearby Pleiades star cluster is its head, and Sirius down below is its tail. The entire animal is laid out in the sky.
A celestial bison, that's amazing.
It's a profound connection to their primary source of food and sustenance. And elsewhere, like in Puerto Rico and Latin America, the belt stars are commonly known as Las Tres Marias, the Three Marys,
Hmm.
or sometimes Los Tres Reyes Magos, the Three Wise Men, bringing in Christian symbolism.
Right.
And even in places like the pre-colonial Philippines, the belt region was called balatic, which resembled a kind of automatic pig trap they used, another practical, everyday image projected onto the sky.
It really does highlight this fundamental human impulse, doesn't it? To find meaning, to weave narratives into the cosmos, no matter your background or your level of scientific understanding. These shared starry patterns become this canvas for our collective imagination. And sometimes these ancient images, or just the name Orion, even seep into modern culture, like the old Orion Pictures movie logo, or I read the U.S. Army's 27th Infantry Division insignia was nicknamed Orion because its first commander was Major General John F. Orion. A bit of a pun, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a bit. But it just shows that even as our scientific understanding grows, that deep, almost primal connection we have to the stars that need to tell stories about them, it just persists. It's still there.
So thinking about persistence, what does this all mean for Orion in the really long run? Will it always be the hunter we know and love? What's the future hold for this icon?
Well, nothing stays perfectly still in the cosmos. The constellation we see today won't always be in the exact same position relative to us. Because of Earth's axial precession, that very slow wobble of our planet's axis like a spinning top slowing down.
Right, takes thousands of years.
It's ghastly, about 26,000 years for one full wobble. Because of this, Orion, which currently sits right on the celestial equator, will slowly drift southward over millennia. The source material mentions that by around the year AD 14,000, Orion will have moved so far south that it won't even be visible anymore from places like Great Britain.
Wow. So our familiar winter friend could eventually become a southern sky exclusive, at least for parts of the world. But what about the pattern itself? Will the stars drift apart and ruin the shape?
That's where stellar proper motion comes, the actual movement of the stars through space. But here's the interesting thing about Orion. Its brightest stars, the ones that make that iconic shape, are mostly very distant supergions. And because they're so far away, their individual movements across our line of sight appear incredibly slow from our perspective. So, counterintuitively, Orion's shape will actually remain recognizable for far, far longer than most other constellations, which are often made up of closer stars whose relative positions change more quickly over time.
So the hunter shape is pretty robust then, built to last, in a cosmic sense.
Very much so. It'll look like Orion for a very, very long time.
The most dramatic event in its future, the one we talked about earlier with Betelgeuse, that's still in the cosmic calendar, right?
Absolutely. That's the big one. The eventual supernova explosion of Betelgeuse. It will happen almost certainly within the next 100,000 years, maybe sooner, maybe later. But cosmically speaking, it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
When that happens, it won't just change Orion. It'll momentarily transform our entire night sky and potentially even the day sky. It'll be this brilliant new star, unlike anything modern humanity has ever witnessed. And it really makes you wonder, what stories ancient people might have told if it had happened back then.
What an incredible journey we've taken with Orion.
Hurrah.
Seriously. From this scientific marvel full of supergiants and nebulae to this profound cultural icon seen as shepherds, hunters, dancers, even bison. From a vital navigational tool for ancient travelers to just this boundless canvas for human imagination across millennia.
Orion really shows us that the sky isn't static, is it? It's this dynamic tapestry weaving together science, history, mythology, and just enduring human wonder. It keeps evolving, and so does our understanding of it.
Absolutely. And as you, listening, gaze up at Orion tonight, or whenever it next graces your sky, remember all this and maybe ponder this thought. What if you were alive in the year, say, 14,000 AD, and Orion, this familiar friend, was no longer visible from your part of the world, just vanished from your sky? How would that feel? Or, even more dramatically, what if you looked up one night, maybe tomorrow, maybe centuries from now, and Betelgeuse had gone supernova, suddenly making Orion blaze as the brightest thing up there after the sun and moon? How would that change your relationship with the night sky? And what incredible new stories would humanity start telling about that new star in the hunter's shoulder? Something to think about the next time you look for the hunter. Imagine a historical text, right? So influential, so foundational that it's still taught today. You see it in schools. It inspires TV shows, even comic books.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But what if, and this is the really interesting part, what if this account, which seems so objective, was actually like a brilliant piece of ancient propaganda designed purely to save its author's career and, rewrite history?
It's a fascinating angle, isn't it?
Welcome to the deep dive. We dig through the sources, find the key insights, and bring them straight to you. Today, we're jumping into Julius Caesar's Commentari de Bello Gallico, the commentaries on the Gallic War.
A classic.
Exactly. But it's not just some dusty old book. It's Caesar's own account of these huge wars, packed with stories, cultural details, and, frankly, some claims that make you go, wait, really?
Yeah. Some pretty wild stuff in there.
So our mission today is to really unpack this text. We'll look at why he wrote it in the first place, the amazing stories about the people and cultures he met, and then we'll get critical about the history.
Right, looking at how scholars today see it less as pure history and more as maybe a masterclass in ancient political spin.
Exactly. By the end, you'll have a much richer sense of this book's legacy and how it literally shaped Rome's destiny and Caesar's.
And for this, we're drawing on a really solid scholarly overview, covering the whole thing, the content, the motives, the modern impact, the debates about truthfulness.
Perfect. It's amazing how something accepted as fact for so long is now seen so differently.
It really is. It shows how narrative control worked even back then. It wasn't just about recording events. It was about shaping perception. A key lesson, really.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. What are the commentaries, like on the surface?
Well, fundamentally, it's Caesar's own story of the Gallic Wars. But crucially, he writes it in the third person.
Oh, right. As if he's just an observer.
Kind of, yeah. It gives it this air of objectivity. It covers about 9 years, roughly 58 down to 49 BC, detailing all the campaigns, the battles, the politics against the Celts and Germanic tribes in Gaul.
And Gaul itself, you mentioned it wasn't just a place name.
Not entirely straightforward, no. For Romans, Gaul meant the Celtic areas beyond their province of Gallia Narbonensis, so most of modern France, Belgium, bits of Germany, Switzerland.
Okay.
But it also had this cultural baggage. Romans often used Gaul to mean, uncouth, unsophisticated, less civilized than Rome, basically.
So that framing helps Caesar from the start.
Definitely sets up a dynamic.
And the book itself is structured. Eat books, right? With that super famous opening line.
Gallia est omnis divisa in partes tres. Gaul is a whole divided into 3 parts. Instantly recognizable.
Yeah. 7 books by Caesar, but the 8th was added later.
By Aulus Hirtius. Yeah, after Caesar was assassinated, Hirtius sort of finishes the story.
But the big question remains, why did Caesar, this busy general and politician, write this massive thing? What was the real driver?
Well, that's where Roman politics comes crashing in. See, Caesar's huge successes in Gaul. They were actually making his enemies nervous back home.
The Optimates in the Senate.
Exactly. They saw him getting too powerful, too popular. They were plotting, spreading rumors, planning to prosecute him for abusing his authority as soon as his command ended and he came back to Rome.
And prosecution could mean
ruin. Losing his wealth, his citizenship, maybe even having all his laws overturned, everything he'd worked for.
Wow. So the commentaries weren't just a war diary. They were a defense, a political weapon.
Precisely. A preemptive struck.
Yeah.
It was his way of talking directly to the Roman people, the plebeians, going right over the Senate's head.
Smart.
He was basically saying, look at what I've achieved for Rome. For you.
Yeah.
It was propaganda designed to build public support and make him untouchable.
And you really can't overstate the impact this had, can you?
No, it was monumental. The wealth he gained from Gaul, the legendary reputation he built through these stories.
Yeah.
That was absolutely key later on.
There's a civil war.
Yeah. It helped him win the Civil War, become dictator. I mean, it fundamentally changed Rome, paved the way for the empire. So, yeah, much more than just a war story. It's a political masterstroke.
Okay, so we understand the why. Now let's dive into what the wars themselves, the people, the cultures Caesar describes. It was a long conflict, 58 to 50 BC. Give us the highlights.
Sure. It kicked off with the Helvetii trying to migrate in 58 BC. That was Caesar's initial justification. But it quickly snowballed into this massive campaign to conquer all of Gaul.
And it wasn't all smooth sailing for him.
Oh, definitely not. He talks about being nearly defeated by the Nervae tribe in 57 BC, a really tough fight. But then he follows up with big wins, like a major naval victory against the Veneti the next year.
And he pushed the boundaries, literally, expeditions across the Rhine into Germany and even across the Channel to Britain.
Yes, those were huge deals in 55 BC. Crossing the Rhine, landing in Britain, these were firsts for a Roman general.
More PR than conquest initially.
Probably a big part of it, yeah. Especially the first British trip, which was pretty limited. It was about building his image back home. He did go back later with a bigger force.
But the Gauls eventually united against him.
They did. Under Vercingetorix in 52 BC. That was the major revolt. The Gauls even won a significant battle in Gergovia.
But it ended at Alesia.
Yes, the famous siege of Alesia. Caesar's engineering, the Roman discipline, it crushed the revolt. After that, Gaul was mostly pacified by 50 BC, though it took decades longer to fully integrate it.
Within this whole epic, Caesar really zooms in on certain individuals. Who stands out?
Two main figures, really, representing different sides. First, there's Diviciacus, leader of the Haedui.
An ally.
Portrayed that way, yes.
Yeah.
Caesar describes him as someone he had absolute confidence in. Diviciacus supposedly pleaded with Caesar, which helped Rome's alliances. He's the good Gaul, legitimizing Caesar's presence.
Okay. And the other has to be Vercingetorix.
Absolutely. The leader of the Arverni, the great unifier of the Gallic resistance. His story is, well, it's quite powerful.
His father was killed for trying to become king, wasn't he?
Yeah, and Vercingetorix himself, after Alesia, he surrendered personally to Caesar, supposedly to save his people. Caesar kept him prisoner for years, then had him executed during his triumph parade in Rome.
Grim. But now he's seen differently.
Totally. In France today, he's a national hero, a symbol of patriotism, of resistance against impossible odds. A really interesting contrast to Caesar's portrayal.
Caesar also gives us these fascinating, though clearly filtered insights into the cultures he encountered. The Germans and the Druids get quite a bit of attention. What does he say about the Germanic tribes?
He paints them as quite primitive, hunter-gatherers living on meat and milk, worshiping nature gods. He mentions some odd customs too, bathing naked together, valuing sexual abstinence for men.
Why focus on that?
Well, he emphasizes their warring nature, constantly fighting, driving out neighbors. He describes their legal system, where robbery outside their borders was actually encouraged for young men, something Caesar calls nearly offensive to Roman ways.
So he's setting them up as the barbarian threat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It helps justify his campaigns as defensive, protecting Rome from these wild outsiders. It really cemented that barbaric German stereotype in the Roman mind.
And the Druids, they seem more complex in his telling.
They are. He acknowledges their huge importance in Gallic society, their high status, their learning. He mentions they studied astronomy, philosophy, theology. Quite advanced.
But there's a catch.
Oh, yeah. He heavily emphasizes their religious practices, particularly sacrifice, human sacrifice. He describes these huge wicker figures filled with people being burned alive to appease the gods.
Yikes. How accurate is that likely to be?
Well, it's a key source, but scholars are skeptical. He might have relied on hearsay, maybe from earlier writers like Posidonius, and the account might be anachronistic, maybe not quite reflecting the reality of his time.
Why portray them as both civilized and barbaric?
It's clever, isn't it? If they're sophisticated, conquering them brings value to Rome. If they're barbaric sacrificers, they need Roman civilization to uplift them. Either way, conquest is justified.
He's covering all his bases. We also get these amazing little stories like anecdotes of Roman soldiers, Varenus and Pullo.
Ah, yes. Book 5. Two centurions, rivals, who end up showing incredible bravery during a siege. They charge into the enemy, save each other's lives repeatedly. It's very dramatic.
Pure propaganda gold.
Pretty much. A perfect story to boost morale after some setbacks, showing Roman courage and unity, contrasting it maybe with Gallic disunity. He knew how to tell a story.
Even his description of things like hostage exchanges seems carefully managed.
Right. It was standard Roman practice, taking sons of chiefs as guarantees. Caesar often took them, didn't give many back. He presents it as normal diplomacy, but doesn't mention, what happened if the agreements were broken.
Convenient omission.
Very. It paints Roman actions in a better light. Plus, there was a long-term goal, exposing these young elites to Roman ways, hoping they'd become pro-Roman later.
It all points back to this idea of careful construction, of spin. But how accurate is it? For ages, people just accepted it, right?
For centuries, yeah. Historians like Nipperdey in the 1840s, Julian in the early 1900s, they basically treated Caesar's word as gospel, infallible.
When did that start to change?
Really took off after World War II. Historians started looking much more critically at some of the, outlandish claims, as they put it.
Like what kind of claims raised red flags?
Well, numbers are a big one. Take his census of the Helvetii. He gives these incredibly precise figures: 263,000 Helvetii, 105,000 allies, and exactly, perfectly, 1/4 of them, 92,000, were fighting men.
That does sound a bit too neat.
Right. And he claims this census was written down in Greek on tablets,
Oh.
which they were somehow carrying while migrating. Historian David Hennage just picks this apart: the difficulty, the unlikelihood of Greek, the logistics, that perfect ratio. It seems highly improbable.
Manufactured,
It
basically.
looks that way.
And
Then
then
there are the battle numbers.
Oh, yeah, the Eusebites and Tensori.
That one's famous. Caesar claims he faced 430,000 Gauls. 430,000.
Which is huge.
Astronomical for the time. And he claims the Romans suffered not a single death in defeating them, and that the Gauls then committed mass suicide. Modern scholars like Ferdinand Lott just say, impossible.
Could it be a typo, like a transcription error?
Some have suggested that, yeah. Like maybe it was meant to be 43,000, which is still massive, but slightly less unbelievable than 430,000.
Yeah.
But even 43,000 with 0 Roman losses still stretches credulity.
It's fascinating that even someone who served with Caesar, Gaius Asinius Pollio, apparently doubted the account's truthfulness later on.
That's a key point. Pollio noted it lacked care for truth, though he kind of excused it, blaming Caesar's officers or saying maybe Caesar meant to rewrite it. But skepticism was there, even then.
So the conclusion modern scholars reach.
Hennage sums it up well. Caesar was one of history's earliest and most durably successful spin doctors. His calm, matter-of-fact style made even wild claims seem plausible.
And the goal was always justification.
Primarily, justify the aggression as defensive, paint the Gauls as barbaric threats, portray the Romans as favored by the gods, winning against insane odds with minimal cost. As Ruth Brundle says, it was fundamentally propaganda to shore up his political position back in Rome.
Which brings us to how it was written. Did Caesar actually sit down and write all this himself?
Probably not penning every word himself, no. The consensus is he likely dictated most of it to scribes. He clearly had the overwhelming hand in shaping it, but dictation probably helped achieve that famous clarity and crisp grammar.
And Book 8 wasn't him at all.
Right, that was Hirtius wrapping things up. But the core books consistently paint Caesar in this specific light. Efficient, decisive, the war presented as unavoidable, necessary. Total narrative control.
Yet, despite the propaganda angle, people also see it as great literature now.
Yeah, starting around the 1970s, critics began appreciating it beyond just history or spin. They saw literary merit, comparing its structure and narrative power to epic poetry, like Homer.
It's skillfully written, no doubt.
Absolutely. Even with the agenda, the prose is elegant, the storytelling compelling. It tells you something about Caesar's abilities beyond the battlefield.
And its influence today is undeniable, still used in schools.
Definitely. It's often the very first real Latin text students encounter because the Latin is so clear and polished. Plus, it's valued for the geographical and cultural details, even if we read them critically now.
And in pop culture, it just keeps popping up.
It really does. Asterix and Obelix is the classic example. Goscinny put in jokes specifically referencing the commentaries, like Caesar always speaking about himself in the third person.
The year is 50 BC. Gaul is entirely occupied by the Romans. Well, not entirely.
Exactly. That whole setup is a direct riff on the commentaries.
And the TV show Rome used Vorenus and Pullo.
Yep. Took those two centurions from that anecdote in Book 5 and made them main characters. Shows how those little stories still grab people. Even composers have used it. Vincent d'Indy naming his symphony the Bello Gallico during World War I.
It's amazing how this one ancient work keeps echoing.
It really is. These texts aren't just static artifacts. They evolve with our understanding. They keep inspiring, informing, entertaining, resonating across centuries.
So wrapping this up, what we've explored today isn't just a history book. Caesar's commentaries are this incredible mix of first-hand reporting, yes, but also sharp political strategy, fascinating ethnography, and just masterful public relations.
A complex beast.
And understanding this deep dive really gives you, the listener, insight into how history gets made, how it gets written, that interplay between war, politics, and who controls the story.
Yeah, it underlines why you always need to engage critically with sources, even the famous ones. How a story is told is often just as important as the story itself.
It's a powerful lesson. Every narrative has an author and agenda shaping what we think we know. So, as we think about Caesar's brilliant spin, maybe a final thought for you to chew on, what narratives are you consuming today? in the news, documentaries, social media, could they be just as carefully crafted, serving some agenda, whether you realize it or not? How can we use what we learned about Caesar's ancient propaganda to be smarter about the information hitting us right now?
That's a great question to end on. Food for thought.